Welcome to A Drop in the Well. This is part of the Homeschool Well podcast, but these are brief snippets that we recorded maybe while we were on a walk or in the car. Anytime we had a great idea that we knew would empower you, homeschool mom, we just started recording. So don't let the background noises distract you. And if this is the first time that you're listening to us, go on back and check out some of our full episodes. Some of you mamas may have listened to some other podcasts where we've talked about letting your kids choose curriculum. And it is very empowering. But I realized while I was at the homeschool convention a couple of weeks ago that it is very intimidating to some homeschool moms. And I wanted to share some nitty-gritty details about one strategy that I employed. You will be able to see, like in your mind, you'll be able to see this movie of how I actually got my kids to figure out how to tell me what they wanted to learn, to get them in this position where they were empowered and they had a system. So I created a little system for them to help them figure out what, in fact, they did want to learn. But let me tell you that when I was at the convention, I did a few hours at the Mentoring Moms booth. And that's another fantastic thing about homeschool conventions. This one that we went to in Florida, FPEA, Homeschool Convention, they have a Mentoring Moms booth. And throughout the hours of the exhibit hall, there are moms in that booth, and you can just go up and ask them any question. And so I have volunteered there in the past, and I did it this time, and it's just very fulfilling. You know, you're giving them just an ear, you're lending an ear for them, and then you're offering some advice. And at this convention, it's a Christian-based organization, so I like to pray for these moms, and it's just a chance to see someone, you know, it's a stranger, right? In person, a total stranger. Imagine that, just going up to another homeschool mom and really being able to bend their ear about something that is heartfelt in your life, in your homeschool journey, and being able to trust them for advice in person, right? So that's the fabulous thing about the Mentoring Moms booth. And that's just another little snippet of why I encourage you to seek out conferences or conventions or some kind of community where you are able to get some back and forth from some fellow homeschool moms and some moms who have been there and done that, or maybe are new also. Okay. And if you need an online space to do that because there's nothing locally in your area or you can't travel, that's why we've created the Homeschool Well community. And we do have a 24/7 forum. We meet once a week with our community members, and we meet once a month with moms one-on-one. It's actually 2-on-1 because it's Jenny and I and any mom who needs our time alone for specific strategies and answers. And I always say, if we don't know the answer, we certainly know where to find it. We've been around long enough. And that's another thing about going to conventions, right? Is that you see all these exhibitors and homeschool supports that you're able to lead other people to if they need it. Okay, so let's get to the little system that I created for my kids to be able to choose curriculum. I started with the Apologia science textbooks. I love Apologia science textbooks. They are very academically rigorous. Supposedly the elementary ones go up to 6th grade, but I'm going to tell you that they are so good and rich and deep and wide. And so I use them longer than 6th grade, and they helped me feel like I was covering some needed aspects, you know, fill in the gaps. Maybe it made me feel like if I had any gaps in the rich learning experiences that I was doing, that these textbooks not only created that for me, but they're also Christian based and creation science bolstering. I mean, it's just amazing the things that I learned in those books. And I'm just thrilled that that was the foundation for my kids learning science. You know, I went to regular public school and I didn't actually come to know Jesus or start studying the Bible until I was 37 years old, you guys. It's unbelievable to me how much I've learned in the last almost 20 years about just biblical truths. And it just thrills me that my kids grew up on that. And I learned so much about creation science. So, what I would do with these Apologia science books, exploring creation, they're pretty meaty. And each one is based on one of the days of creation. So, there's 6 books. We're going to just take the flying creatures for example. So I would want to do the flying creatures all year. However, I also know that there's other sciences that we're also drawn to. And we did 4-H experiences that were about forestry and like botany. So we had to do some plant things. We did have curriculum for that, but it certainly wasn't creation based. So I would grab that Apologia book as well. And so I would say, hey, Wyatt, here are 2 science books that I would like us to learn from this school year. The botany book is going to go along with forest ecology. And then the flying creatures book is all about, birds, and there's flying dinosaurs in there, which he was really into. And I knew he would like that. And I said, we have to study some things from these 2 books. Okay. So there's me letting go, but there's me also holding on to some control, right? Where I'm like, I know I'm going to do these 2 books for the reasons I just said, right? They'll give me some validity in the, like some of the science standards. I know I'm filling in gaps if I'm creating any. These books will kind of cover it, right? But yet I'm giving him this freedom by saying, here are some sticky notes. Here's some skinny, pointy sticky notes, and here's some big square sticky notes. And I am going to leave the room. And I'm going to leave you with these 2 books and these 2 packs of sticky notes. And I want you to go through the pages however you see fit. You're in charge. You look through these books. You can read things. You can look at pictures only. You can just look at the table of contents. I don't care how you do it. And at this point, he was an independent reader. So I gave him those options. I said, but I do want you to look through somehow the entirety of the book, like all of the chapters. I want you to know what's in there. I don't want you to just go through the first 10 pages and then be done. And I want you to, pray about it and think about it and be thoughtful and not just speedy to get it done. Respect the fact that I'm giving you this choice, just like I am respecting your ability to choose, like don't take advantage of me giving this to you and just act flippantly about it. That's what I mean to say, right? So I put that whole thing in his lap, literally on the floor, the carpet of our living room. I would have to probably squeeze my lips together and shut my ears with my fingers and leave the physical room. And if I walked by, I'd have to just try really hard not to intervene because this is his time with that science curriculum. I told him he gets to choose whatever he wants to choose by putting the sticky notes on the pages or, the square sticky note, maybe at the beginning of a chapter that he wanted. And then if there was something within that chapter that he really wanted to study, then he would use the pointy sticky notes to kind of highlight those areas within the chapter or in the table of contents. So it's very tangible, looking through pages, pulling off the sticky note, writing notes on the sticky note if he needed to. My daughter did a lot of that. Like maybe there was an event that she knew about that went along with something in the science book. So she would write it on the sticky note. The sticky note was in the chapter where that content was in the book. And so that would go together. So that then, the timer would go off or whatever. I don't know if I set a timer or not, but if I did, it was just to keep me out of it. I just really wanted to give that over to them. And I'm sure I learned this from some other amazing homeschool mom too, by the way, but just being able to let go and do it is a hard thing. I get it, but I'm telling you, it's so worth it. So timer done. I go in, I look at the book. We maybe talk about what they chose a little bit, but I say to them, okay, and especially if there are a lot of sticky notes and I know I'm not going to get to all of that content. Okay, now I want you to pick like top 5 things, top 5. And here's like another color sticky notes or use green or number them or whatever the concept was, but choose a top 5 from each book because, I would love to do all of these, but really, is it feasible? And at least we know what you're interested in. So let's see which ones stand out to you the most. So then again, I'm out of the way. I let them figure it out, top 5, come back to it, say, great, okay, now I'm going to take some time to look over these things and figure out a more refined plan with it. And for me, I really loved coupling the content in the book that they wanted to talk about with some rich learning experience. Just made our homeschool fun. And that's what it was about. And I love going around town. I still do, to all kinds of museums or events or things like that. And then having extension activities and a way for them to dive deeper if they want to. I hope that clears up the process for you. I'm adding a little conversation here that I had with my daughter. She'll be 20 in June, and she's just finished her second year of college. She has some insight about how this little process, year after year, helps her even to this day. And I think her insight is great. I did try to get my son, who is going to be 16 this summer, to give his insight, but he just gave a few words. You'll be happy to know that they were good. Yeah. And great, or something along those lines. And one more note about my son. One of the topics he chose in the Flying Creatures book was the flying dinosaurs. And so that school year in 4-H, when he had to pick a topic, he chose to do his presentation on flying dinosaurs. And so if I hadn't given him that choice of looking through the book, maybe he wouldn't have had that experience, or it wouldn't have gone as deep as it did to be able to create this speech. And I think he either made a slideshow or he made a science board, but he had to have a visual to go along with his speech. And so it all started from the sticky notes and me leaving the room and saying, hey, what are you interested in? Have a conversation with this book and God, put the sticky notes down, and then we're going to roll with it. And it culminated in that amazing presentation. I just want to encourage you because let me circle back to when I was at convention and this mom came to get some help and was feeling overwhelmed. This little bit of advice that I shared with her about helping her kids become involved, and if she was comfortable with this process that I explained to her, or some other, conversation or some way of just involving her child, your child, I'm talking to you, like it was a relief to her. And I love having conversations with homeschool moms when we know by their physical body language that what we're saying is truly a solution. Like they don't have to say a word. Sometimes it's just, you can tell that the weight physically lifted from their shoulders, like it's happening in the process. I can see it, like, oh, that's such a great idea for me. Or, that's a jumping off point for me to where I can do this other thing that sounds like it would even fit better for my kiddo. And, had she not stopped on purpose and been vulnerable and explained her situation a little bit, she wouldn't have had that insight given to her that just was a starting point for her to create something better. And I know that it was good because after about 30 minutes, she came back. And I love that. If somebody really helps you and you go back after a little bit of time and just tell them specifically why and thank you and how much of a relief it was, that's an important thing to communicate to people because sometimes there can be a lot of crickets. And homeschool moms, they need to hear encouraging words. They need to hear uplifting words. They need to hear, don't quit, hey, don't quit being vulnerable and talking to other people because what you just said really helped me out. And I hope that this was a way for you to see how you can get your kids involved in choosing what they want to learn and how they want to learn it. Set your boundaries like I did. We are going to study these topics. Like, yes, we're going to study science. Okay. And maybe like I did, yes, we're going to study flying creatures in science and botany. but you get to go through and get those highlights. So you have your boundaries, they have their choice opportunity, and it will get them invested more in their daily work, as well as help them refine what their interests are, what their giftings and talents are. And as you'll hear from my daughter now, you'll see how that could help them in the future as well. So when you guys had the opportunity to choose your own curriculum, like the subjects that you wanted to learn, and I would lay out the books, like specifically the Apology of Science books, and I would give you sticky notes, skinny sticky notes and big square sticky notes, and I would say, go through the books and pick as many things as you want to learn about that interest you in this book. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel about that, choosing your own curriculum?
I felt good about it. Personally, I enjoyed it. I felt like it gave me a lot more creative control over what I was learning about. And it definitely streamlined me into preparedness for like college when you get to decide what you want to do.
Oh, like certain topics in college when you have to do like a research paper and you decide the topic like
Not
that.
even just something as simple as like choosing your major. Because I think it's kind of a foreign concept for kids that don't get to pick what they want to learn. And that's why there's 100 people who have 100 major changes in college, which not to say that I haven't changed my major, but it definitely got me familiar with the idea of choosing what I wanted to learn and that being a positive thing.
Oh, I never thought about that in terms of really nailing down your major in college. And let's get back to what you did. What you did was refined your major to steer you away from your weakness area, which is
Math. I wish I knew how to do math.
it's okay.
No, it's fine.
I just think that it's fine. Everybody has different bends, different talents, and math is not yours.
I don't even really enjoy it, frankly. Anyways, going back to it, I did end up refining my major towards, I switched from marine science to natural resource conservation with a focus in coastal ecology, and I added a second major, which is education sciences, because I'd like to do environmental education and I'd like to work in outreach. That just comes from not really wanting to work in a lab, but that's a whole nother thing.
And do math all day.
So, I'm very clumsy. If you put me in a lab with a bunch of glass equipment, I would get fired immediately. So yeah, that was part of that. But going back to it, it really did help me decide what I wanted to do early on.
Yeah, like literally, I got to the point where I was so let go because at the beginning of our homeschool journey, I was very controlling. And I didn't really let you have much of a say. Sorry, you're the first one.
I feel like that comes from a background in education.
Yeah, I always say I had to learn to get out of the box. But by the end, I was really comfortable letting you both choose the content area and then also some rich learning experiences that you wanted to do, coupled with that. So I'm glad you had those positive takeaways. All right. Get your kids involved in choosing curriculum. I hope this sticky note method works for you. I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, please reach out. You can respond to us via email at support@thehomeschoolwell.com. And we will see those emails directly in our inbox and answer those personally. I do hope you see the value in it, and I hope it encourages you and gives you a sense of relief that you can get that burden off your shoulders if you're feeling it, of having to be the owner of their education, right? It's their education. That's our message for today. We are cheering you on, homeschool mom. We'll see you next time.